What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're watching this on the replay, what you're going to want to do is skip ahead to about the 10-minute mark, because we're going to do some giveaways and stuff that you need to be here live for, and I don't want you to have to sit through that. But if you are watching this on the replay and you didn't watch it live, you should subscribe so you can watch live in the future. So in just a minute, I'm going to introduce our guest. But before I do that, I need anybody that's on to let me know how the sound and picture quality is, because occasionally I start these things and people are like, I can't hear you, I can't see you, and so on. So, and plus that'll get us a little bit of engagement going and get us warmed up a little bit. So somebody let me know how the sound and picture quality is. Monari says, hey, everyone. What's up, Monari? Today, we're doing it a tiny bit different. Instead of being on Instagram, we are on Twitter/X, two different YouTube channels, my channel and the legit channel, and several places on Facebook. So Jacqueline says, I can hear and see you well. Very well. Great, great, great. All right. So let's go ahead and bring up my screen here. Shop. And StreamYard/giveaway. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen once I get it set up. There we go. Mubasher says, hello. Hello, Mubasher. Hello, Stoicism Strategist. All right. This is the legit merch store, which I still need to update the logo on. I say that every time and I never do. What you're going to do, what we're going to be giving away is a piece of legit merchandise to one lucky winner. Keith is here, so he'll probably be the winner. But you can see there's a lot of different things. The backpack has been really popular, but we have t-shirts and hoodies and all kinds of other cool stuff, mouse pads, golf balls. If you're into golf, I am not, but there's that. So what we're going to do is go ahead and choose this live stream. And we're going to do spring training as the keyword. So basically what you're going to do is for the next 5 minutes, you're going to type in spring training. Did I spell it right? Yes. Okay. Spring training. And then after a few minutes, we will go ahead and pick a winner, and then we will get into today's topics. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go ahead and piss some people off and try to get us some more people on at the same time. It's kind of a 2-for-1 type of thing that we're doing here. Jacqueline says, in the UK, a hoodie is almost a necessity. I keep hoping. It's all one word, spring training. So Jacqueline, you're going to want to type that again with all one word. I'm guessing where you are, Terry, that hoodies are not necessarily a requirement. It gets quite warm there.
Not this week.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I've got a jacket on now. It's still only in the 50s.
Oh,
So, but
only
that's
in the
cold
50s. Actually, it's warmer than that here. It's 60 today.
Yeah, I think we're supposed to get up to like 68 or something. But mornings are really cold. It's 40s in the morning.
Is that unusual?
For this time, for this late in the year, I think it is. So.
Late in the year, it's like mid-February.
Exactly, but we should be, we should be almost, ready to put shorts back on here. Pretty
Why isn't it not picking up? Did I spell it wrong? Oh, I did. No? Why is it not picking up any of the entries? Spring training. There we go. Okay. All right, so we'll let that go to about 107. We'll go to 108, and then we will pick our winner, and then we'll get into today's topic and introduce our guest. So anybody have any questions in the meantime, you can always put those in as well, but want to make sure that you get a chance to win that legit merch, because it's good for me, which is really my goal, but it's also cool for you too. So even if you're a gentleman, just fair warning that if you wear any of it, you will not be able to keep the women away. That, at least that's what I'm told. That has not been my experience, but I can be hopeful. Spring training, I got about 8 entries. I think it's not working right for some reason. me try again.
Get in over and over again.
Well, I mean, that's it too, but usually it's more than that. Yeah, it seems glitchy. So before I pick a winner, I'll do that one more time just to be sure. Because God knows if somebody gets screwed, I will hear about it. we used to do, before they built this feature into the software, we used to just pick a number, and then like whoever got closest to the number would be the winner. And God, the way people tried to screw me on that was just unbelievable. Like photoshopping, sure. It was insane. All right, we got about 2 minutes remaining. Keith says his entry is in. You can stop the count. The joke there is that Keith, it has not so much lately, but for years he won every time, like week after week after week after week, to the point where people thought it was rigged.
Yeah, I can kind of see that. This time of year in this season, I don't say the word rigged anymore.
So yeah, I guess we are getting the same folks. So we'll go about 1 more minute and then we will choose our winner. Somebody says I'm here again. If you're watching in a Facebook group, you need to go to StreamYard.com/Facebook if you want to play along in the contest, because you have to authorize StreamYard. I don't know why they do it that way, but it is what it is. So whoever that is, whoever this is, you're going to have to go to that URL first and then authorize Facebook. Otherwise, it's not going to count it because it is what it is. I don't know. And all right, I think that is all right. I'll give it just another second for whoever that Facebook user is to try and authorize. All right, let's go ahead and refresh one more time. See, it's just not working right today. I don't know why. It said 13 a minute ago. All right, well, screw it. That's as good as we're going to get. I'm sorry, everyone. Let's go ahead and pick our winner. Congratulations, Josh, another one of our regulars and somebody who's been helping me out lately. So I'm happy to see you win. So what you're going to do, Josh, is go over to the merch store and pick out whatever it is that you want. And then if it's something that requires a size, you're going to pick out what size you want, and then just send that and your mailing address to Legit Support, and they will get that out to you as soon as possible. So congratulations, Josh. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. All right, so let's get into it. Now, if you're watching on the replay, now's the time to start paying attention. I am joined today with Terry Samuels, the host of, along with his wife, of SEO Spring Training, one of the bigger SEO events of the year, as well as the owner and founder of Salterra Digital Services. I knew it was Salterra. I didn't know the rest. And he's an SEO industry veteran, and I think an actual veteran, if I'm not mistaken, and he specializes in on-page and schema and has been at this a long time. And as usual, the best part about having great guests like this is it means less work for me to do. So, Terry, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate it. I'm glad you could make the time. I know we had to work you in on the schedule there. I guess we'll just start off. Why don't you just give us a little bit of information on you, your background, your origin story, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so I've been doing, Salterra agency is 14 years old this month. The first couple years we were just kind of under the radar doing more software development type stuff. And then we came out of the woodwork and started doing websites and slowly started getting into the agency life. Not really sure. I kind of got forced into SEO. My first SEO client was charity, a cancer charity. And she's like, "Oh, I'm paying a lot of money for this thing. Can you see what I'm paying for?" And this was when there wasn't much information out there about what it was. So I actually bought a SEO for Dummies book years ago. And I bought another one. I can't remember which one it is. I need to put them up on my bookshelf. But anyways, So I'm a very technical guy because I come from the software development side. So that's the part of SEO that I like is the code side, the schema side. On page is probably my passion. But and then we started teaching and slowly growing that side of our business, and we did our first SEO Spring Training in 2019. So this is our fifth year. Um, and Yeah, I think it more comes from a passion for helping, teaching, giving back to something that I really like. And it's not getting any easier. So, that's one of the things that we do. And I have SEO University, which I teach classes in. And that's another one of my, I really want to do more teaching.
I didn't
Stay
even
with
know you
my
had that,
core.
so that's good to know. I'll
Yeah.
get a link from that for you later and include that. But
Yeah.
so SEO Spring Training, you mentioned that. Like, I've been asked from both of my businesses to make a conference a couple of more than once, and I looked
Mhm.
into it and I was like, "Fuck that!" Pardon my
Mhm.
language. I was like, "That looks like way too much work for somebody like me." So I guess my question is, what motivated you to do an in-person conference, and like, what's some of the good parts and some of the challenges that you have with that?
I think the first reason we did it is because we wanted to provide a conference that had just tons of value. Um, we've all been to conferences that, maybe it was okay, it really wasn't anything earth shattering shared. It wasn't maybe really a breaking point to go to the next level. So we really wanted to have an event that would just bring, the right people that were doing the right things and willing to teach that, and not willing to hold back. Because there's a bunch of ways to get to the ultimate goal in this business. And, if you only get to a certain part and that's where it ends, then it gets frustrating. So I think that's the biggest thing. I came from a conference, and not 2 weeks after I came from that conference, that particular conference upset me so much that we started our first SEO spring training. So,
And before we continue, I want to point out that I was at Terry's conference last year, and he gave me one of my favorite moments of the whole year. When at the end of my presentation, he said he asked the room, "Has anybody here ever used Legit?" And like 90% of the room raised their hand, and that almost got me. So I was like, I was almost the second person to cry at that event, not mentioning any names on who the first one was.
exactly. So yeah, I tend to cry a lot when I talk about my
Yeah, I
family.
understand.
So,
I understand, but that almost got me too. So I get it. So thank you for that. But so I imagine that's a huge undertaking to plan. Like, what are some of the challenges?
I think, well, obviously this year especially was cost, the hard cost, because we had just finished in April last year, and we started working on this one in July, and just in that span of time, our hard cost went up about 27%.
Oh wow.
So, and mostly food, because we do provide lunch, and also hotel. So, and the reason we started this much earlier this year is because we wanted a little bit more kind of negotiating power with the hotel. So, one of the things that we do is we spend a lot of time before we choose a hotel on, what are the good networking spaces? Where can people hang out and talk? Where can people can go inside at a bar. Do they have a good seating up there? Can people go around the pool? What time's the pool closed? So, so it's kind of funny, but that's how we pick a hotel. So we had good negotiating power this year. This year was a little bit challenging because we're always the week after Easter, and this particular weekend, the men's Final Four is in Phoenix. So
Oh,
there's that huge event. So it's actually kind of funny because some people that are coming to spring training are going to go to the men's Final Four either that Saturday night or Sunday night. But it's so those were kind of the challenges of it, getting the hotel and getting all the costs negotiated. As with any event, because that's you want to make sure that you're providing the quality of an event that you want people to have a great experience at. So and again, we don't skimp on that, but you also have to be cognizant of ticket prices, because flights are more expensive. Everything's more expensive nowadays.
mhm.
So that's kind of the challenges of finding that sweet spot of, have an event, where it's going to be, what are we going to price it at? And then just making sure that the only goal in life is to provide value to everybody, including the speakers. So,
That was going to be my next question. Is you don't have to give the exact process, but like, what do you look for in people that come to speak? Like, what do you,
um,
what?
well, I did. I'm kind of fortunate because I had so many people. SEO Spring Training has a great reputation, so I have a lot of people request to speak. So this year I had, or Clint and I both. Clint, I actually brought Clint on this year to help me with the speakers and figuring
Clint
out the new
Butler.
format and stuff. Clint Butler. But this year I had about 93 people that wanted to speak. One of the things that I try to do each year is I try to put new people on stage. So it's not, the same people would be great, but I kind of like to try to introduce new people to the family.
Mhm.
So, that was kind of the big thing. I also, this year, I paid more attention to the format because we changed the format. So this year, we're actually going to have a morning stage. So there'll be speakers on the main stage in the morning. And then in the afternoon, there's going to be mastermind breakout rooms. So if you want to go to on page, you can go watch all the people on page. If you want to go to off page, if you want to do AI, if you want to do agency growth. So in the afternoons, people are going to have the opportunity to pick and choose of what they really want to get out of the conference. So, and if they miss somebody one day, it's the same people the next day, just maybe a different time slot. So we're really trying to make it so you don't have to miss anybody.
That makes
But it's more of a conference this year of whatever phase you're at in your walk of SEO, we want to be able to provide those opportunities specifically to you. So, we've all been at the conferences where everybody sits in a big room for 8 hours. And, some of the speakers are interesting to you. Some of them you might not be interested in because it's just not your part or whatever. Maybe you're not at that level yet. So this year's going to be different. This year we're getting a huge, um, feedback of just how great this is going to be and all that good stuff. So, but yeah, that's kind of how we got started. And it's a passion of ours, with our masterminds. And then the big one though is the big ones where we spend the most time. This year for the VIP event, we're going to the Yankees Diamondback game, so we rented a couple suites. Um, we have our annual golf event, so the golfers come in and we golf in Scottsdale in April. Pretty cool.
awesome.
But yeah,
And that, can you tell us what the dates are this year?
April 3rd through the 7th. So the
And
VIP event is April 3rd. The conference is actually the 5th, 6th, and 7th.
okay, and there's still a little bit of space available, right?
Yeah, there is. We're maxed at 180. We don't go much larger than that because we like that intimate type of conference. So this one we've got a hard max at 180. So just because the room itself just won't hold anymore. So we are expecting to sell out. There's a bunch of coupon codes out there if you want to use Terry 24, TERRY 24. Then that'll give you the biggest discount out there right now. So,
Great.
but we'll
And
probably, when in fair warning, we're probably going to shut the coupons off here in the next 10 days to 2 weeks.
okay, and they just go to seospringtraining.com.
Yeah, just go to seospringtraining.com. You can see all the information there.
Great, and
The
that's
schedule,
on.
the schedule's up, so you can see who's speaking when. All that good stuff.
Okay, and that's on the screen as well as in the chat for those of you that are watching. I got a couple of questions. Keith says, "Would you ever consider streaming the training for people who are not in the U.S. and maybe can't make it? I appreciate that people might not want their secrets shared, so recording is not possible. Probably not possible."
We did record last year. I can tell you as a host of a conference, it was the biggest pain in the ass that we did. Um, and unfortunately, and we sold. I think I only sold like 50 recordings. I didn't publicize it that well, and nor did I want to. Anyways, out of those 50 people that did it, only 2 people watched them. So, so I'm sitting there going, okay, well, was it really worth it? It wasn't. We don't do this for the money, obviously. So I'm not going to sell 1,000 recordings for $400 or whatever. But the biggest thing is yeah, it is. It's basically up to the presenter themselves. So we do record it, but what we do with those recordings, we don't. Last year was the first year we sold them, and I don't think we're going to do that again this year. But I do respect the presenters if they don't want to have it on camera. We definitely take it off camera. But live streaming it, we did that when COVID hit. We did a huge live stream. Our 2-day live conference turned into an 8-day digital conference. I had 72 speakers, like 900 people came through in 8 days, but it was COVID. What else are you going to do? you're,
Right.
you're locked down for 2 weeks. So they said at the beginning, but anyways, so we've done it, it's not that we couldn't do it. I think the live events are so crucial. The people you meet, the time that you spend with people, the people that you can reach out to after the event, because now you have this relationship with them on a different level, and really start, kind of just getting into the crowd, so to speak. And I mean, it's yeah, we probably will look at doing, and we do events during the year that we do live stream. So it's just not the big one. So, but yeah, I appreciate that, Keith. It's something we do think about. It's something we do talk about. Um, but in our smaller events, we do it, and I
Yeah.
can let you guys know when those are. So,
Yeah, I can only imagine the hassle of like trying to record it and then edit it and then upload it and like
exactly. And live streaming is even worse because, the connections, I mean, we don't control the connection, and most hotels don't
shit.
have the best internet.
No.
So, so there's different things, and now you're taking money from people and having an internet problem that you can't
Right.
control. So, I'm a no drama guy. It's the first thing you're going to find
Yeah,
out
me
about.
too. Which is why I've never tried to do a conference myself. Uh,
Exactly.
Jacqueline, I guess we kind of just answered that. So, all right. Well, that's kind of anything else you want to cover about that, or we can go on to.
Yeah, we can go on. Yeah, if anybody has any questions about it, we've got, if you're an agency and you want to send, one or two or three people to it, contact me or Elizabeth, my wife, and we have, special deals for agencies to bring people like that.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, if there's anything I can help you with, just let me know.
I just want to say one other thing is that I hated the idea of SEO events for basically my entire career until I went to yours last year. And I really did see that there's a lot of value in getting to know people in person. And it's led to some pretty good connections for me. So,
Yeah, and it was great having you too. It was, and it was great breaking you out of your little shell. You're good at what you do.
okay. So,
You're a wealth of knowledge.
great. So, we'll move on. One of the things that you're well known for is being good with schema. And I remember, I don't want to give away any like particular thing, but I remember you showing us a page there that you ranked entirely with schema with nothing on it, and other
Mhm.
than like I think like a video. And I guess what draws you to that, and like what can you share with us on that?
Um, yeah, I actually have an entire website ranking just for schema. I think the biggest thing that drew me into schema was that, again, it's code, which is right up to the way my brain thinks. But it's the original language that all the search engines did together. So, it's not like, they all came got in this big room and invented the internet. But we do know that the schema code, the JSON code, the way the schema is built, um, Google can read it, Bing can read it, Yahoo can read it, and Yandex. So, and so the biggest thing is okay, we have this schema out there. I think I've been doing it for almost 5 years, but schema is obviously older than that. But I don't think anybody actually spent the time to see what types of schema or what types of things you can put in schema. Excuse me. Scratchy throat.
Hmm.
So anyway, so I just started testing it. I just started. Okay, so I went to schema.org. They have some examples in the bottom there of what the code looks like, or what the code should start ending and opening and ending. And then you just start playing with what you can put in there. They give you an example of a few different things, but you can put in the founder, you can put in all the information about that person that founded the company. You can put in, all the information about the brand. And what I tell people that schema does is that, if you picture you in the middle of a room of 100 people, and these 100 people are spread out all over the place and you're in the center, well, a few of those people are going to be able to be notified as you because they're maybe your social media people. So you have a Facebook guy, you have a Twitter guy. So, anyways, a plugin will bring in the normal stuff you tell it to bring in. Here's my name, here's my phone number, here's my address, here's my website, here's my social media stuff. And some of them will even try to do a little bit more than that. But the rest of the stuff out there in this big old room is not anywhere out there except for through search. So if I go out there and I search legit, and I go through all the different mentions of legit on the first 4 or 5 pages of Google, then those are all the things that Google knows about legit, but it's just spread out over 5 pages. So schema will allow you through same as and some other different variables, bring all those into one place. So Google doesn't have to work so hard. So I personally believe that schema was originally designed to organize the internet. And it's kind of crazy if you think it that way. So, but if every single website was a center point of all the mentions of that website, then don't you think I kind of think the internet would kind of be cleaner because Google wouldn't have to work so hard and show 100 different results for this brand if this brand only has five, So again, it's a way to have to speak a language to Google, Yahoo, and Bing that number one, the public doesn't see. So you can put a lot of more stuff up there. Misspelled words. I'm very big in the marijuana space. So marijuana is one of the biggest misspelled words on the planet. You put all those misspelled words in the schema so you can still rank for them. You don't want to kind of spread it around on the public content because you might kind of look like a stoner. So, or if you have clients that just are so anti-content, oh, we got to remove some of this content. There's too much content, fine. I'll put it up in schema. So I don't argue with people anymore about it. So, but anyways, so there's lots of advantages of schema and the way we do schema and teach schema. I have a bunch of information out there, just YouTube me or whatever. But it is one of my passions because we have seen movement. Now schema is not a magic bullet. Schema is not going to fix an already dropping website. Schema is not going to reverse course if something has already happened and negatively. But if everything's right and everything's solid, schema will definitely put you in a better position in a bunch of different ways. So, but
So
again, it's I don't know. We've seen it work. We know it works. We white label it. I do white label schema for a lot of agencies, and a lot of people are starting to see how important it is. There's a lot of people that are starting to see that maybe this plugin isn't giving me everything schema could give me. It's kind of just a big band-aid. But it's the same band-aid a million other websites have on it.
right.
So you're not in any different position. Where my schema or our schema, it puts you in a different position, basically.
Okay. So for those that aren't familiar with it, schema is I'm going to try to break this down to like the most beginner level. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a type of a code that is metadata, and metadata is data that describes data. Is that right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So hopefully that for the people, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's exactly right. So basically, you kind of build a second web page because they're all by page. So you basically build a second web page in like microdata, so in the schema. But and you can do a lot more. Nice thing about schema is you can do a lot more that you probably wouldn't do on the public side because you get questions from your clients or customers or whatever. So
there's tons of different types, right? There's organization, there's person, there's blog, there's article, there's all I don't know, hundreds. I don't know.
Yeah.
A lot. Is there any of them that you find that are useless? Because I've tried to do like blog schema and I put the entire post in the schema code and it doesn't seem to do anything.
I think the biggest thing. So there's three types of schema, four main schemas. So you have your site wide, which your site wide schema is usually an organization schema, professional service. If you're a plumber website, you can have home and construction business site wide. So that's kind of the first thing is who you are, and that's the site wide. It's just a very 50,000 foot level about your brand, who you are. You mentioned your service pages, you mentioned some reviews, all that kind of stuff. And then you get into service schema. Service obviously talks about that specific service, and then you get into local business, if it's a local page. On the flip side, we like article schema. Article schema is actually one of my favorite schemas, mainly because it's one of the only schemas that you can use keywords in, and do not stuff schema. That's my number one thing. Google will see it and it will penalize you. So you'll get a big old thing in Search Console. But put this keywords that this blog is about, and go into finding what your entities and, put all that stuff in there. And then you can go in, you can write your schema, put the article in there like you would on the page. But then the other parts of the article schema that are great is like same as. So I do a lot of content clustering. So if I'm doing a content cluster for a tankless hot water heater for the service page, then that main entity of page would be the tankless hot water heater. And then the same as would be links to all the 7 or 8 or 10 things around that cluster. So it ties them all together into one. So when Google sees one blog, it goes to the schema, it knows that this next blog's the same as, because it's all going to this main entity, which is tankless hot water heater. So it gets pretty cool. But yeah, we still continue to test this thing constantly. We have people full time that's all they do is schema and research. So we definitely take it seriously because we definitely know it works. And we also know it can hurt web pages too.
Yeah.
I
I was
had
going to bring that
somebody
up. You
put,
mentioned the penalty. There is actually, I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a manual penalty for invalid schema type or
yeah,
something like that.
invalid schema type, reviews in the schema that aren't on the page. There's a few different ones that Search Console will nail you.
Yeah, I remember that was a thing people tried to do years ago, was get the stars to show up in Google search, which I don't think they do at all anymore.
Yeah, it's very few you see, but we still try to put those in schema because, as we know with Google algo updates, a lot of times what's old comes back.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people don't realize Google Organics is pretty old code on top of code on top of code.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Like,
wouldn't want
I
that
remember
job
back
to
in the day, a
start
lot of
rid of them.
people got penalized for trying to get stars where they shouldn't have them.
Exactly, for sure.
Yeah. And it's a little off topic, but you make a good point about it being code on top of code on top of code. When I search for stuff now, I have a really hard time finding what I want. And I feel like they've kind of gotten to the point where they have, instead of having this plan from the beginning, which they couldn't have, that they've had to add things on top of thing on top of thing, and they don't really know how to fix it at this point.
Exactly, 100%.
Yeah. As someone that has built a platform, I understand how that happens, because ideally I
Mhm.
would like to be able to start the whole thing from scratch and like with everything that we have now. But obviously the real world doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. My first job offer out of the Navy was a webmaster for PetSmart, and it was basically 3 platforms on top of each other. And all I wanted to do was one platform, and they wouldn't let me. And I was like, "Well, I'm not your guy." Then.
yeah.
So, that's not.
Yeah.
It's not fun to keep putting band-aids on top of band-aids. But
Right.
I totally get it, but it's not fun doing it.
Yeah. I guess that's a good transition. Like, what do you think the future is? Do you think AI has a big part in that? Does that help with schema at all? How does that tie in?
Yeah, AI is going to be the thing. I think right now, and it's one of the things I've been teaching for about the past year, is that with especially with the expansion of AI, is helping the search engines understand the content is going to be more important than anything.
Mhm.
So because there's people out there that are just loading up content just to load content. It's shit content. We know it's shit content, but it's still taking crawl budget away from other people, other
Mhm.
stuff. So I'm really hammering siloing websites hard right now. How important that is to make sure your content is what you want your content to do, and not do a web design blog and then have a internal link there to your email marketing page. If the blog's about web design, make sure your links are about web design. Try to keep that into one little cluster, even your old content. And that's the only way I think we're all going to compete. I think crawl budget, I think just getting crawled is
Mhm.
going to be a huge thing. So we kind of need to be ready so when it's our turn. And I think that way organizing your website is probably going to be more and more important than ever. So
Isn't it weird that that has to be like advice to give people, that to make your site easy for Google to understand? It's literally what our job is.
exactly.
Like,
But there's sites out there that we call them traffic hogs. Search engine land is one of them.
yeah,
And you look at their blogs, there's no siloing. They just link out 60 different times in one blog post. All the cardinal rules we don't teach people, or we don't do. But people don't realize that they're there because they're a traffic hog. So
yeah,
traffic's always going to be king. You can have the worst technical website on the planet, As long as you're getting 1 million hits a month, you're still going to be at the top. So
That's why parasite sites are crushing for affiliate now. As you know, because
exactly. Yep.
the example I always give is I looked for best boxing gloves a few months back, and like the number one result was Rolling Stone magazine, and then the next one was like Forbes, and that was like Reddit, and like none of those sites are designed for that, but because they have the traffic and I hate saying authority because people think I mean the Moz metric, but when I say authority, I mean the way authority is actually designed. They have authority, and that's why they rank. And
Exactly.
regardless of doing things right, that can be very demoralizing if you're in like an affiliate type niche.
And it can for sure. I think the biggest thing that's more important now than ever is you have to personalize whichever AI tool you're using to that brand, that client. That's what we've been doing with Chat GPT since the beginning, and the content's great because it's writing because we told Chat GPT who this client is, what their specialty, who their competitors are. We've preloaded this thing to where now when you're asking it to write an article about something, it's including that personalization in those articles. So every time we need to write more for that client, we go back to that one client's prompt and we just start going after it again. So, but again, we still haven't found a great tool to automate, loading content, without a human touch. So we're still testing that because we all have some lead gen sites or something that I could load 100 pieces a day or something that's not going to hurt anything. But we're just, we haven't found that magic bullet yet, but I'm sure it's coming. But then we're going to have a whole bunch of new problems then. So,
yeah. You mentioned how it's important to like set up I don't know what you really call it, but like a client profile in the GPT. We actually have something like that built into the Legit dashboard now, where you can like click it and it'll give you like a SWOT analysis and like their hopes and fears and like the type of content they offer, and build like a whole business profile on them from AI built in. So
yeah, that's the key, and that's all these AI tools. I think that until they have something like that, it's just a giant scraper that can formulate words.
it's not even truly AI, in my opinion.
Yeah,
It's predictive algorithms because it's not thinking unless you tell it to do something. So it's not
for sure.
truly intelligent. That doesn't really matter, but it's just a point that I
But,
find.
and you did mention, how we use schema with it is, it is very good at finding entities about an article. It is very good about, you know, finding entities that maybe you don't really want to write about, but you definitely want to put them in your schema, So, and if the entity is big enough to get a machine ID from Google, that's even more power.
Yeah.
So, but again, I think it's use it for what it's designed for. Like I said, I wouldn't use it to. Well, I wouldn't say that because we actually have a lawyer client that just loves the Chat GPT stuff that we're doing. So,
That's
and
surprising.
she's actually the one that reason why we did this in the first place because she was never happy. It's just like one day an article would be she'd pick one out of three and they were written by the same person with the same stuff. But she's really liking Chat GPT because we can go back and say, hey, can you do this in a happier tone? And we can just change the tone and write a different thing. So
Interesting.
all of our clients know we're doing it. We're not trying to hide it from them. We're trying to teach them how to use it themselves because you can share that chat prompt with them. And, and the ones that are using it are loving it. It'll help you write workflows. It'll help you do storyboards if you're into videos. It'll help you do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of turned everyone in the world into a content writer in a way, which is unfortunate for content writers, but
100%.
like our content sales, there's a clear line when I look at our reports that of when ChatGPT came out and before that it just jumped right off a cliff as soon as it came out.
Yeah, well, and same with ours. We actually brought our content writers on our staff as editors now.
Yeah,
so we just hired them.
Yeah, so we got a couple of questions here. Tala says, I think we are all single. Well, Terry is not, but I am.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm guessing most everyone else here is. I think the reason he's saying that is because it's Valentine's Day. So happy Valentine's Day to those of you that are spoken for. Tebby Chiropractic and Sports Medicine Clinic in Charlotte, North Carolina. There's your free plug. It says, we've created schema for clients to rank outside of their service area. So yes, schema works. Is that something you've done too? Or?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Interesting.
We figured out we can, we can. It depends again, our magic word, it depends. But I mean, yeah, we definitely have seen an increase in proximity, through some stuff that we do with schema. We definitely, do kind of what people do with neighborhood pages. We can do that kind of stuff with schema. Especially when you get into the knows abouts, that kind of information. But yeah, definitely. So, again, if it doesn't, if you're in the middle of Phoenix, it's probably not going to work that great, just
Right.
because of, because it's in the middle of the fifth largest city in the country.
It's actually helpful here because like I live in one of those cities where like all the cities around it, if you live in one of those cities, they say they live in Myrtle Beach, even though it's technically like Surfside or Garden City or whatever. So I've had to come up with a lot of tricks for that because people want to rank for that whole area, but if their address is just one, it's one of those things. So that's good to know.
And it's unfortunate that Google's, even went down that path, that they think that a plumber only can service a small area. I mean,
Yeah,
it's really the whole Google Map algorithm is just really unfair from the get go. And
it
that's,
is. It's also my least favorite thing to do in SEO because it's never the
it's
same
mine
twice.
too. I rank maps fine, but I despise even my staff doing stuff around it, because there's, you just loading up an image, boom, you're suspended. You're
Yeah.
like,
Well, and it doesn't seem to work as consistently as organic. Like from one
yeah,
thing to
for
one
sure.
campaign to the next, it's like never the same. It drives me up the fucking wall. So
Yeah, 100%. It's one of the things that I really don't. I'm actually kind of been laughing today because I guess maps are down all over
yeah, I saw
the.
that. It's like
So I'm actually kind of going,
yeah,
you know, I
I'd
wouldn't
be
put it on
fine if they
Facebook.
burnt it to the ground personally, but
Yeah, for sure.
uh, anyway, let's see. Somebody says hi. Yash says, "What are your views on Gemini? Seeing ahead, considering SEO." Gemini, for those that don't know, is Google's version of ChatGPT. I mean, they didn't call it that, but that's what it is. And
Hmm.
it came out maybe a week ago or so. I've only briefly played with it myself. I think the interface is a little better. But that's about all the feedback I have on it.
Yeah, the only thing, we really haven't played with it too much. There's a bunch of people I follow that jump on playing with these things, and so what I have heard is that, Chat GPT is still leaps and bounds better.
Yeah,
Um, and again, I don't know. Google could be dominating here. I think they're kind of holding back because they're probably afraid of what obviously this is going to do to their bandwidth and, server resources and storage and
well, not to
all the
mention it could
stuff that.
cannibalize their income source.
Exactly. So I think they're just holding back. So yeah, like I said, I personally haven't played with it, but a couple people that I follow, actually, they're speaking at SEO Spring Training. They have tested it. And I'm sure it's like anything else, and it's probably at its infancy stage. I think Chat GPT was doing a lot of stuff before it became public, obviously.
Yeah. Um, Google has a history of trying to get into things that aren't their thing and sucking at it too. Like especially with
100%.
social media. Like they tried
Yes,
like three or four different
Google
times.
Plus.
Yeah. Um, somebody says, "Do you think Parasite SEO would be good for e-commerce?" I don't see how because e-commerce you have the sites, the products on your own site. So I don't see how Parasite SEO could work for that. Definitely works for
Exactly.
affiliate though. Pretty much
Yeah, I
any
don't.
affiliate term you see is going to be that. So can you tell me, sir, how we rank service area? That's kind of a big question, but I mean, I guess the schema was one of the big parts of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, on page, I'm of the belief, if your on page is top notch, then you can not only get away with a lot more, but you need to, build less links, so on and so forth. So obviously link building is definitely important, but we don't do it right out of the gate. So we're all about on page, make sure the on page is right, make sure your structure is good. You only have one H1, just the typical SEO rules, and
Mhm.
then, make sure you have enough content. I think our standard right now is 1,000 words is the minimum on our pages. So make sure they're interlinked properly. If you use FAQs is becoming more and more important, especially when you go down the entity track, because, remember, here's the big secret. I guess it's not a secret. Most people don't realize that Google can't read. So Google doesn't read left to right, top to bottom like we think, or, whatever your language pattern is of how they read. But all Google's looking for is signals. So if your site's about web design and they know that by the hopefully your URL, title, description, H1, then it's also going to be looking for other signals. So if maybe your article's about WordPress versus Joomla, so then now those are new signals that Google's going to be looking for. Here's a WordPress signal. Here's a Joomla. Oh, here's a Drupal was mentioned because that's again, it's still an entity. So when you start realizing how Google finds stuff and ranks stuff, then you're going to think about content a little bit differently. So the nice thing about using tools like ChatGPT is you can have it write articles that'll include these 5 entities, that'll include these, 10 different variations of this keyword. So, that's where I would start. And being again an old HTML CSS guy, we kind of had to do that manually back in the day. And now it's more, automated. So but yeah, that's learn on page, um, I have a class if you want to take my class. It's not going to start again until May. We're right in the middle of our third one right now. But yeah, just learn on page. Learn how to do content. There's people in Legit, that you can hire that are really good at this stuff. I'm one of Legit's biggest fans, so and have been since the beginning. So reach out to me. I'll give you a couple recommendations of who I use on Legit. So,
Perfect.
but
Uh, yeah. So let's just keep on with the questions. Can this be rewatched? Yes, it can. Wherever you're watching right now, you can watch again, or you can watch on YouTube at chrismwalker.tv. I'm new to SEO and how does schema work? That's kind of what we've been talking about so far. I don't want to really recap the whole thing. I can create maps in service area, but I don't know how we can rank. We kind of just covered that. Robbie says, I know he is an expert in schemas. Well, okay. So is SEO basically about getting Google to trust the website? That's a good question.
Yeah. I mean, that's the whole goal of your website is to be the dominating resource of that space. Once you become a dominating resource of that space, then yeah, Google trusts you. Google, your site has authority. Eat. That's what all the eat stuff's about. So, yeah. If you want to dominate, then you need to have the most trustworthy. You know, trustworthy is kind of a weird word because, especially if you're a plumber. I mean, we know how to do this. Here's all our reviews. We can tell you all day long on our website how much you can trust us. But and Google will see that. But I'm more about what'll get the conversion. So yeah, Google trusts the website. I can rank, but if you rank and can't get conversions, then what's the point?
Yeah, unless
So
it's just a lawyer who needs the ego of being number one.
exactly. So authority and trust is definitely the ultimate goal of any website.
Yeah.
So
I really hate that Moz used authority as their metric because now whenever I say authority, people think I mean Moz, and I don't.
yeah, I don't know. It's becoming an authority in the space.
Yeah.
So if I want to dominate web design, which we're working on, then I'm going to be an authority in every single thing about web design. So, if somebody's coming to me or my site to find out about HTML versus WordPress, I better have an article for that because that is a search term if I want to go after that market. If you're going after a market and you kind of leave out a good portion of that market, then people bail your website and they're going somewhere else. So, but yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned that your background is in like coding and stuff. It's interesting because yesterday we had another guy on, Kylene, whose background was as a programmer. And, I have a degree in computer programming too. It's just
Mhm.
interesting how many people have migrated from that to SEO. And I think part of it is because it's, more rewarding, both just like emotionally, for lack of a better word, but
Mhm.
financially too. So
Yeah.
is that kind of what drew you away from it?
That and again, it's just finding out how things work.
Yeah.
My actual first paying SEO client was in penalty, so I had to learn what the hell did that even mean.
Yeah.
So now you're digging into finding backlinks and all the stuff that as SEOs we need to be doing, but most don't. But that's the kind of thing that intrigued me. Like one of my favorite things to do nowadays is I do a lot of I call it forensic SEO for a better term, but I like finding out what happened to a website.
Yeah.
So, and that's like one of my favorite things. I'm doing a big one right now big, I call them traffic hogs, but they've lost 50% of their traffic the last year. So, those things are kind of where I really kind of, my programmer brain just lives in. Just put on Rush 2112 and dig in.
It's an interesting choice. Yeah, it's I think that for whatever reason, having a background in IT really seems to help. Help. I know it certainly has with me because I've had two previous careers. I worked in IT, and then I worked in politics for a while, which is where I learned how to build communities, which has been very effective for me. But also, I don't really do a lot of coding, but still knowing how it works and like being able to talk to our developers has been invaluable for me. Not, I shouldn't say invaluable. I mean, it cost me $60,000 in college degrees, but that I don't
Yeah.
use at all. But I mean, it has been helpful in that regard. So we got a few more questions. Fahad says, can you share some insights or tips on effective on-page SEO techniques that website owners can implement to enhance their? So let me rephrase this question this way. What are like 3 or 4 of the top things you look for in on-page? If you were just going to give somebody a bullet list, what are some of the most important things?
Proper use of tags is probably the biggest thing. I mean, I mean, you really have to kind of spend a little bit of more time, effort, and energy on stuff. So the old days of just having a pretty generic title, I got my keyword in there. I have a pretty generic description. I have my keyword in there, and then your H1 is Dallas plumber. Nowadays, you have to spend more time in that. You have to be more grammatically correct because even though Google's still looking for signals and it doesn't really care if it's grammatically correct, the opinion of people do. So, so it doesn't hurt to say, one of the top 10 plumbers in Dallas is your H1 or something like that. So, but the biggest thing again is use of tags, like your H2s, H3s, H4s. Excuse me. Just make sure that you're not wasting those. So typical WordPress web design, we see 15 H1s on a page because the designer is looking at it more of a design aspect rather than an SEO tool. So, so when we look at it as SEOs, we're like, okay, we only need one H1 and, some H2s and some H3s, but pay attention to what those are because in web design, you can have your click here's are typically H2s just right out of default of most themes. So you have to spend a little bit more time to make sure that everything's the same. So H1's the topic, H2's the subtopic, H3's a subtopic, H2's another subtopic of that main topic. So again, it's an organization of a page that I think that's the biggest tip you have to do on page.
Yeah.
And then it comes to interlinking. So, you really want to stay away from links that say learn more, click here, those type of links. I'm more about, actually linking to what the next article is. So if I'm writing an article about tankless hot water heater, and I talk about, solar, is solar good for tankless hot water heaters? Maybe that's one of the FAQ questions. Well, if I have a page, which I should have a page that talks about solar and tankless hot water heaters, I'm going to anchor text that to that page. And that anchor text can be, should I use solar for tankless hot water heater? Should I use solar? So it's, get away from the 1 and 2 word anchors and go into more 3, 4. I've even anchored a whole sentence if that anchor has something to do with the page I'm sending them to. And I think the third thing is just, make sure your titles are good and your descriptions are good because that's where you're going to get the click. Spend more time in there. Research, have Chat GPT or something, write 5 or 6 different variations of each. But those are the big things that you really want to make sure that you can do.
All right. That's interesting because one of our next questions was what's the ideal anchor text keyword optimization for internal links? I think you kind of just covered that as to whatever the target page is about.
Yeah, whatever the target page is about. Again, I don't go outside the silo unless I'm doing a versus. Then if I'm doing, why do I need SEO for WordPress web design? Then I'll do both SEO and web design. But for the most part, the anchor texts are going to dictate your silo. So, and then there's an argument: should I do an external anchor to a resource page? We do those, and most of those are no follow from our end. because I really don't want Google leaving my page to go to that page.
Right.
I'm not doing that anchor for that. So as far as how many anchors, our typical rule at Salterra is for 1,000 words, we'll have no more than 5 anchors on that page.
So 10% or whatever it is. Yeah.
So, and that's just, I don't have proof of what the magic number is. I just would rather have a clean page, thinking about more from a consumer. And then in all blogs, we have an author box, and that author box is the same for every single page.
One of my favorite internal linking things, like magic tricks, is to go to Google and use the site operator. So yoursite.com, and then the keyword that you're trying to rank for. And then the first result should be the one that you're trying to rank that for that term. And then you just go down to the second one, which is the second most relevant, and then build a contextual exact match anchor up to the first one. And I found that works really well, especially for breaking ties, is what I like to call it. If you're at number 2 and you want to get to number 1, that's like the first thing I recommend to people. So
yeah, for sure. We do a lot of stuff with especially competitor links and stuff in schema, because they're actually an entity. A lot of people don't realize that your competitors are an entity. So it's a signal. So if you're going against neilpatel.com, put that sucker up there as, knows about neilpatel.com in your schema. It ties that entity into your, that's one of your target competitors.
So there was a good golden nugget for everyone watching. We have Facebook user says, how do we connect to Terry for your recommendations on Legit and your upcoming course in May? How should people
just go to salterrasite.com and just reach out.
All right.
I'll put it in here.
Oh, cool.
Make sure I spelled it right. Oh, it said it failed to post.
I'll do it. It might be a permissions thing. Salterrasite.com.
Yeah, Salterra Site, SITE.
Oh, I typed it wrong. Damn it.
Hey, those 2 buttons are right next to each other.
I'm a terrible typer. I cheated in keyboarding in college so I could pass.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I actually took typing for 3 years and I still can't type.
Yeah.
That was the class, first in the morning class in high school.
So it was for me too, and I was in college and mornings didn't really agree with me. They still don't, but that's another discussion. So is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Yeah, so that's a good place so you can get a hold of Terry. Next question is, you need an SEO to help me rank higher. I'm sure after posting that, you'll get more than enough offers. Yeah. Because we are like vultures when it comes to that sort of thing. So
exactly. Please just watch it. Just my one big advice is if you see something, especially in a Facebook group, test it. Find a way to test it. It doesn't cost much money to buy a domain, hosting, throw a 1-page website up there and just test stuff.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. And most of the audits that I see, 80% of them that I find is on-page problems and problems that either the current company didn't do or isn't doing. So just kind of pay attention. If you got questions, reach out to people like me. YouTube's a valuable resource for, if somebody's got a bunch of videos about something, then they're probably doing something right.
Yeah. Or they're a grifter and they just talk.
Yeah, exactly.
But all right, well, we're almost out of time. If we have any more questions for Terry, please go ahead and put them in. But do you want to just break us through what's going on with SEO Spring Training one more time before we wrap up?
Yeah, it's the 3rd through the 7th of April. The 3rd and 4th are pre-event days, and then the 5th, 6th, and 7th, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday is the actual event. The regular general event ends Sunday at lunch, and then Sunday afternoon is what we call the Tech Mastermind. It's probably the funnest part of the event for a lot of people, the techie people, because we go into some, kind of black hat type stuff. But that's always kind of fun. And then, reach out to me if you are an agency and you want to send more than one person. We have specials for that too. So if you do come to spring training, I can guarantee you won't regret it. That's my biggest thing.
You mentioned a coupon code earlier.
Yeah, Terry 24, TERRY 24.
Is that does case matter or?
I don't think so.
Okay, cool.
But that's the best coupon. There's a bunch of them out there. I think that's the best one out there. So it should be. It's mine.
All right. Well, I think that's going to about do it. Questions seem to have died down. We got one more. How to avoid external linking pitfalls. I mean, I guess the only thing you really need to do is make them no follow, right?
Yeah, make them no follow. Just really try to pay attention to don't link to Wikipedia. That's everybody links to Wikipedia. You might as well not link.
Yeah.
But if there is truly a good authoritative site that talks about what you're talking about, um, you know, I would rather kind of steal their content and give them kudos and a link from my site to them rather than linking directly to their site. But yeah, if you do it, like I said, just no follow it. Um, that way you don't. I just don't want Google to leave the crawl. If I only get a half a second, I want them there the whole half a second.
Yeah. Also, make sure it's not a competitor.
Exactly. Yeah.
You don't want to push your competitors' ranking. So, all right, I think that'll do it. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up?
No, I just, I thank you for doing this. You're, like I said, you and your group and your platform are one of my favorite things out there. So, if you have any questions about how legit is, get a hold of me.
I certainly appreciate that. Thank you very much. All right. Tomorrow we will be back at 1 p.m. once again. Busy week for me. We'll have Julian Goldie is going to be our special guest tomorrow. If you're into AI SEO, programmatic SEO, and stuff like that, he's really, really top level at that stuff. He's doing some great stuff. So
yeah, Julian's awesome.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here today. I say this every time, and I mean it. You could have been anywhere else in the world, and you decided to spend some time here. That's something I will never, ever take for granted. So thank you. Amen. And last but not least, figure out what you want out of life and go out and get it, because you owe it to yourself and you owe it to the world. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.